welcome to the 2021 summer competition for the Redlands Camera Club. And Frank, if you would like to introduce our judges, please, we will get started here.
Hello, Camera Club members, and welcome to our summer competition. We have a stunning lineup of judges tonight, starting with Ralph Nordstrom. Ralph is an educator. He teaches workshops, a longtime, very skilled landscape photographer who also does wildlife when they wander into his backyard. Ralph has been a judge here before many times, and he's been a judge before many times because he's good. Our next judge is Bob Fletcher. And many of the things just said about Ralph Nordstrom could be said about Bob Fletcher. Bob is also an educator. He teaches workshops. Many of our members have attended many of his workshops. Bob is a longtime commercial wedding portrait photographer, although he does spend most of his time these days in pursuit of educating others. Third judge tonight is Frank Peel, who's been a member of the Camera Club for close to 40 years and is a mostly retired commercial photographer. He has been photographing commercially for over 60 years. Started when he was 2.
Yeah.
That's our lineup of judges.
Thank you, Frank. A little bit tonight also about our category X. As you all know, we have a category which changes each competition, and so we call it category X until we decide what it is. This month's category X is altered reality, and we've pretty much left that up to the individual photographers to decide what that means. So it's just the challenge is to create a work of art using photo editing tools. The only rule that we had was that any composites have to contain our work of the photographer only. Can't go get something off of the internet. So that's all we require of that. The only other restriction, of course, is the usual restrictions on photojournalism. Anybody have any questions about category X or our categories? Okay, we will move on now to the entries. I'll just run through them fairly quickly, just a few seconds on each one so you get a feel for what we have. We have 33 entries today, and here they are. Those are our images. We'll go back here to the first one. And the first image will go to Ralph Nordstrom. It is from the places category, and it's called Swirl of Sandstone.
The scores are 80, 78, and 77.
Yeah, I give that an 80. And this is a good way for a landscape photographer to get started, the Wave. And the Wave is such a wonderful spot. There's so much going on there. And I really like the emotion and the energy in this image, in this composition, especially as the curved lines come out of the bottom of the frame and swoop up into the center of the frame. I think there's one thing that I would comment on that could improve this image, at least as far as I'm concerned. And remember, all of this is subjective. Every one of us judges has a different way of seeing these things, and you might get 3 different opinions about this. But I think the sky could be rendered a little bit darker. There's some nice clouds up there. Darkening the sky would, and maybe desaturating it just a little bit, would create a greater emphasis on the sandstone. So that's the one comment I would make about post-processing. But other than that, I love the energy in this.
Thank you, Ralph. The next image is Redlands Pride. It's in the places category, Redlands Pride, places.
'80 is the average, 79.66.
I scored this an 80. I like the colors on it. It has red, it has white, it has blue. It gives you the location of it by showing the people in the foreground, the orchestra in the middle ground, and obviously what's going on is the fireworks display in the background. I wish the lens were a little wider so that it didn't cut off the flaring of the rockets a little bit. I'd like to see that in completion, but overall, I think it's a very pleasing image.
Thank
I'd like
you.
to add one quick comment. I scored it 82. I don't remember ever seeing a shot where I could tell the reactions of the people without actually seeing their faces. They're all looking up. Many of them are holding phones to capture the image. I think that adds immeasurably to the quality of this excellent shot.
Thank you, Frank. The next image is in the altered reality category, North Head Sunset.
I scored this image a 78. I like the composition. I like the rolling hill in contrast to the horizon, which looks good and level. Clouds add a nice mood, but there is an overall muddiness to the foreground and middle ground. I like the painterly effect in the foreground, but that muddy effect brings it down for me quite a bit. And it's most notable in the near side of the lighthouse, which of course is in shadow, but I think it could have been treated to give it a little more sparkle and life. 78.
Okay, thank you, Frank. The next image in the close-up category is Bug and Bloom. Bug and Bloom. Score.
81.33.
81.
I gave it an 80. And the technical qualities of this photograph are excellent. I'm glad for the title because The flower itself has such powerful visual weight that my eyes really didn't wander off of that and see the bug on it. So this was a case where the title was contributed to the overall understanding of this photograph. Technically, it's just beautiful. The black background, it really sets it off handsomely. And so I gave it an 80.
Thank you, Ralph. The next image is from the places category. Golden moments. Golden moments.
'78.
And Bob, this one's yours.
I scored this a 78. First viewing of the image, I liked it, but I am struggling with the horizon leaning to the left. Horizons are very easy to fix in post-production, or they're easy to fix when you take the image by just making sure it's level. It is nicely sharp. I think it has good balance to it. But I just struggle with that horizon being to the left. So I scored it a 78.
One quick comment.
Oh, go ahead,
for the
Frank.
maker. If you have trouble with finding an accurate horizontal horizon reference, look for a vertical horizon reference. And you've got a couple of really strong ones in this image. Look at the support piers for the Coronado Bay Bridge. They're leaning to the left. Look at the nearest corner of the Harbor House restaurant, leaning to the left. In spite of that, I gave it an 80, maybe because it's where Sue and I celebrated our 25th anniversary, and where last year we celebrated our granddaughter's wedding.
The next image is in the close-up category. Friday morning. Friday morning.
'76.
I scored this a 77. I find it a delightful rendition of a beautiful blue flower. There are some things that could improve it. The brightness in the background behind the flower really pulls the viewer's eye away from the subject. Much too strong. Easily remedied by doing a little burning in, but also burn in the upper left corner a little bit. The water droplets on the petals add a lot of life to the image. It looks as if the petals may not be quite sharp, but there's an effect that often happens in a deep blue color that fools the eye into thinking there's a lack of sharpness when there actually is. So I'm not certain that that lack of sharpness is just my perception or if it's real. But overall, I like the soft effect of the image. The thing that would really bring it up is burning down that horribly bright spot in the background. 77.
May I add to that, Frank? The one thing that I struggled with is the fact that that stalk is directly in the center and it's straight up and down. If it had tilted, if it had come out of the lower right or lower left, it would have had more impact to me.
The next image in the close-up category is Gold Dancer. Gold Dancer.
'81.
This is another example where the technical quality of this this photograph is very, very high. Detail stands out in the petals. You can practically, well, you can not practically, you can see the veins in the petals. The highlights are a little bit burned out. That would be nicer if they hadn't been burned out. The composition, again, is very energetic, and I can see why it is reminiscent of a dancer. I like the angle, even though the flower is in the center of the frame, that doesn't make it static, which placing things in the center of the frame often does, leaves them static. There's a lot of visual tension in this, a lot of energy, a lot of motion. And so I gave it an 82.
The next image in the altered reality category, Twisted Relic.
'81.
And looks like this one goes to Bob now.
I scored this an 80. I like the image. It's a good, strong image. I wish it were not dead center quite as much. If it had, if the altered reality had been maybe pushed to the entire image, pushed to the left a little bit, or even pushed to the right, just not dead center, and given a little more space around it. Yeah, it's right in your face. Although you see the sky, it would have, to me, it just would have been a stronger image had the maker just backed off a couple of feet and given a little more space. I like the fact that it is black and white, and it's a challenging image to alter in that way, and I think it was very creatively done.
Thank you.
If I may add a
ahead.
comment, this is why we have horse races. I do like the fact that it's in the center because, again, it's not static, it's very dynamic. And just the way the radiator there is distorted, you've got a lot of energy in this. And typically the reason for avoiding putting things in the center is because they lose energy. Well, this has plenty of energy. The bent fender there, or the bent, but I really like the curve in the radiator. So that's just a different opinion. That's why they have horse races.
That's why we have 3 judges.
Yeah.
I scored this an 82, and the thing that appeals to me most about it is the whimsy. Look at that grass. The grass is laughing at the vehicle. The vehicle is laughing at itself. It's wonderful.
I like that.
Congratulations to the maker.
The places category is next, Saved by the Bridge and Chain.
'79.
I scored this an 80. I wanted to go higher, but I'll in a minute I'll tell you why I didn't. First off, there's some really nice things about this image. The photographer chose the vantage point carefully, I believe. Time of day, got some nice shadowing on the hills on the Marin side of the bridge. But later in the day, I suspect would have been even better. I'm perplexed by the title. I just don't know what that title means. And if someone has to think about the title too much, they may not appreciate the image as much as they otherwise could. I like the action in the water. The horizon is not quite level, and here you have a pretty distinct water horizon, which is often a really good reference to use. But if you didn't see that, you've got the bridge itself, and that center tower is not quite vertical. So pay attention to the details and rethink that title, please. I think you'll do your image a favor if you give it a title that does not perplex the viewer.
Okay, the next image is in the open miscellaneous category, Stars over Joshua Tree.
'77.
one of the things I like about this, of course, you have to love astrophotography. It's wonderful experience and got part of the Milky Way there. I like the way that the trees are receding, getting smaller and smaller as you go from the left to the right. I like that a lot. The thing that made me think about giving it a 77 is that there's not a lot of tonal separation between the silhouettes and the sky behind it, um, especially on the right. Uh, that tree uh, that tree sort of fades into the sky, and you have to look really hard. Oh, yeah, there's a tree there. Yeah, I see it now. Um, so I would recommend brightening the sky a little bit more, bringing out the stars a little bit more so that the contrast between the silhouette and the sky is a little bit stronger. So I gave it a 75.
One quick comment, I gave it a 77. Uh, the eternal challenge in dark sky photography is finding a really dark sky. Here, the maker has taken advantage of the much too strong light from surrounding cities by silhouetting the Joshua trees against that light. But unfortunately, because of that terrestrial light, the maker has not been able to give us a good dark sky with bright stars. So unfortunately, the north end of Joshua Tree, where you get good Joshua Tree images, is not a dark sky. And it shows in this image to its appearance. 77.
The next category is animal category, on target.
'80.
I scored this an 80. Um, I think it's a pretty strong image, even though it is centered, which I typically don't like. I think it works for this image. The one thing that kept me from going higher, and I really wanted to, was the fact that the dark feathers, which are in the shadow, could be brought up a little bit without bringing up the whiteness of the head. If the maker had just gone into, and I'm assuming it might have been processed in Lightroom, just gone into shadows and bringing up about 6, 7, 8 clicks, that would have given a little more tone to those feathers, which would have helped a lot. The fact that the talons are sharp, the fact that they're there, you look like he's ready to grab something, gives it a really strong impact.
The next image is from the altered reality category, bend in the road.
'83.
Scored this in 85. What a wonderful image. Beautiful painterly effect, taking full advantage of the side light on the trees. I love this. The S curve in there is one of those things photographers dream about. I don't believe this painterly effect is the result of the photographer making a click with a filter. I think that it shows some rather laborious work on the maker's part, and I applaud the maker for it. 85.
Thank you. The next one is in the animal category, flying eagles.
'81.
Wow, what a fun photograph this is. Again, technically, boy, those eagles are really sharp. You can see the feathers. I would agree with Bob in his previous comment about the eagle, about having more detail in the shadow parts of the wings. And again, as he suggested, the shadow slider could bring that out. I also was thinking that a little bit of vignetting. I'm not sure that I'm seeing. Maybe there's a little bit of vignetting there that just draws you in towards the center. There might be a little bit. Yeah, it's very subtle, which is good. It's hard to see. And then the interesting juxtaposition of those two beautiful birds, both of which are really sharp, is just very nice. So I gave it an 80.
Next image from the places category, waves sculpting the shore.
'80.
I scored this an 83. I really like the image. Technically, I think it's very well done. The horizon is level. It is sharp, yet there is a little bit of action in those waves, so you can see movement in the waves, which gives it an impact to me. I sort of wish that those people weren't back there, but it also at the same time gives it a little bit of perspective in having them there. The fact that the rocks in the lower left-hand corner are a bit of an anchor, it helps frame it. Overall, I really liked the image. I thought it was well done.
Okay, the next image is from the close-up category, plum blossom.
'76.
I scored this a 75, and my first words to the maker are you sure your monitor is calibrated? This is a thoroughly delightful image that's let down quite a bit by the overexposed highlights. And it's entirely possible, if your monitor is not calibrated, that it looks great to you on your monitor, but on a calibrated monitor, we can see that the highlights are simply blown out. Let's get past that. The dreamy overall color is very interesting, and the way it's used in the stroke is interesting also. You may notice that the stroke is not monochromatic, that it runs from a nice soft pink to an almost white, much like the blossom does in the image. I like the water drops in the image, the subtle suggestion of a stem or foundation for the blossom. I would like this about 6 points better if it weren't for the blown out highlights. 75.
The next image is from the altered reality category, 442nd honor roll.
'76.
I think there's a good story here that the image is attempting to convey. A story of patriotism, a story of people who, for whatever reason, are honored. But it's a little bit difficult to read, starting with the top end of the flag cut off. That draws our attention and doesn't feel quite right to us. And then it's really hard to see the names of the people. And if this is an honor roll, I should think that who they are is more important and deserves more weight in the image. So those are the two things I would recommend. Just the flag, the top of the flag being missing, and it's difficult to read the names. I do see there's some vignetting here, and especially in the upper part of the image, top of the image, there's some vignetting here that's very, very strong. And I'm not sure that works really well either. It does kind of bring you into the amputated flag, but I think in this case, the vignetting could be more subtle.
79.
I scored this an 80. I would love to go higher with it. I think overall, the image has a good story to it. I love the color of the sky. I struggle with the highlights. I think the grays could be brought down a little bit. I also think it was the wrong time of day in this particular direction for the image. You can see that the subjects, which are the hoodoos, are mostly in shadow. And had it been photographed at a better time of the day when they were in sun, I think it would have made a much stronger image, and it would have brought out the colors in the top of the hoodoos much better.
Thank you, Bob.
I'm going to
I have
challenge this
I have a
image.
comment too. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that you, Frank?
And I'm challenging my own score. I'm at 76, and I would invite my esteemed colleagues to help me see why I should come up from 76. When this image first came up, I grabbed for my sunglasses. Now that's a tribute to the realism of the image, I think, but it's also a negative comment on what Bob just said. You've got some blown out highlights here, or very close to blown out, that deserve better treatment. I really like what's going on in the sky. The composition is okay. It'd be even nicer if there was something in the extreme foreground, but I really wanted to love this, and I just without sunglasses I can't, and so I invite my colleagues to let me know what I'm not seeing, or convince me to bring my score up, please.
Well, let me comment because I'm starting to question my 80. What I'm seeing in the lower left-hand corner is a very sharp, distinct shadow from that hoodoo. And it looks like the sun is fairly high in the sky, which then the sky becomes a question as to how could that's a sky that you see during silver twilight. That's not a sky that you see in golden hour. You might see something like that in golden hour, but from the shadows, yeah, and I'm looking at other shadows where the sun is actually quite high in the sky. So I'm quite convinced that that sky was dropped in, and that the shadows, the conflict between the length of the shadows. Actually, if you look on the right, there's very short shadows there, which indicates the sun is really high in the sky. And I think when you're adding a sky such as this to an image, which it appears is what happened here, you need to be really careful that the whole image is consistent with the sky that you're adding. And like I say, clouds like this occur during civil twilight when the sun is 0 to 6 degrees below the horizon. And so, Frank, leave your score the same and I'll leave mine the same, okay?
So,
Okay.
so I might understand the scores are 80, 80, and 76, correct?
Bob has not made his comment yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. One of the things I struggled with was the small hoodoos in the lower right-hand corner. And if the maker had cropped this to a square format, it would have helped that to me, because the main subjects are the hoodoo on the left and the hoodoo on the right. Ralph, I'm not sure I agree with what you said looking at those shadows. I'm not sure that it is a high noon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon kind of shadow, because those are fairly long shadows from the main subject, the tall hoodoo. But if you look over off to the right, those are fairly short shadows.
Yeah, very short.
So, yeah, so I'm struggling a little bit too. Whether the sky is dropped in or not, I don't know. I have seen that kind of a sky in monsoon weather where light is coming from various places, it seems. And I am one, I'm always hesitant to say that something when I'm not sure of it. It could be dropped in, and if it was, they didn't do a very good job of it. If it wasn't, I don't know. I struggle more with the, like Frank said, I want to throw my sunglasses on because that gray is too blown out to me. That should be brought down maybe a whole stop. But if it is, then those shadows are going to make a lot of that detail disappear. So for me, it was just shot at the wrong time of day more than anything.
Yeah. And in response to your comment too, if the clouds were orange like that, the sun, if not during silver twilight, would have had to have been during golden hour. And it's definitely not golden hour light on the foreground.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
In rebuttal, I appreciate the wisdom of my colleagues. I was not sure about the sky, whether it had been dropped in or not, and that frankly doesn't bother me as much as the gross overexposure of those highlight tones. I'm going to stay at 76. Please rescore.
Yeah. I just want to share a really, really quick experience that I had with the dropped-in sky. I was doing some one-on-one tutoring, and at the end of that, the lady said, I bought this photograph in Sedona, and something just doesn't feel right about it. And I said, well, go get it. So she got it and she brought it out, and sure enough, there were the wonderful rock outcrops of Sedona with a gorgeous setting sun sky above it. And I looked at it, it didn't take very long to realize that on the rocks, the light was coming from one direction, on the sky, it was coming from a different direction.
Mhm.
And so when you're going to do something like that, I don't criticize anyone for dropping in a sky. In fact, Henry Peach Robinson in his book said you're obligated to put in a sky if there's not one. But if you're going to do it in a way that is consistent and is believable.
Okay, could we have everybody rescore?
It depends on the others. I would be open to doing that, but it depends on the others.
Well, we had a challenge, Ralph, so we have to have a rescore.
77.
Okay, the next image is from the open miscellaneous category, and it's spring tree.
$77.
I scored it a 77. Lovely blossoms, lovely tree, composition. I like the way you've almost filled the frame, but you've taken advantage of that beautiful blue sky as well. It could benefit from a subtle vignette. And when a flower blossom is the star of the image, maybe you want to get in closer so we can actually see at least one blossom in good detail. 77.
Okay, the next one is from the altered reality category, Salvation Street.
$80.
The creative energy in this and the thought that went into this is just extraordinary. I gave it an 85. And we have a wide range of opinions about this one, but I love the creative energy in it and what it's trying to say. I'm not sure I know exactly what it's trying to say, although certainly it has a religious feeling to it, or a religious message to it. The distortion of the reflection in the water, the bricks, it's just the choice of the color palette, the gold against the almost the cyan blue, turquoise blue. I think the bricks maybe represent an edifice such as a church or a cathedral, um, and looking up into the heavens, uh, there's just so much going on in this and so much thought that the artist put into this. I'm very impressed with it, obviously. 85.
I think I'd like to challenge this. My first thought, I scored this a 75. So I don't know if that's an automatic challenge or not. I think it has to be an 11-point spread to be an automatic challenge. But I looked at this and I struggled with the pixelization or the low resolution on much of the image. But after listening to what you had to say, Ralph, there were portions of it that I looked at it again and said, you know, he's right. The bricks or whatever they are, they could be gold bricks for all I know. They look out of place to me. But then the ripple in the water, whether it was actually there or created, I don't know. But that actually worked well then with the bricks after listening to your statement. So I guess my challenge is to say, I think I scored it too low.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing too. The ripples in the water give it a ripply effect, whereas the bricks are very solid, they're in focus. And there's another form of contrast in this image between the ripple effect and the very solid bricks, the building blocks of a place of worship.
Scored this in 81, and like you, Ralph, I felt that the creativity here was very strong. I am inclined to stay with my score. Bob, an automatic challenge occurs only when one judge's score is 10 or more points away from the average.
Well, I'd still like to challenge it. I think after listening to what Ralph had to say, I'd like to bring my score up.
Let's,
Yeah, but
Sounds like a good rebuttal.
let's see, is that, was that your rebuttal, Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's, judges rescore, please.
83.
Keep talking because I'm just really enjoying looking at this photograph. I keep on seeing more and more in it. The warm colors of the bricks advancing, the cool colors of the water behind and retreating. It's becoming three-dimensional now.
Okay, the next image is from the places category. Not a barrel of fun.
$80.
I scored this an 81. I like the image. I love the warm tones of the thorns on the cactus. I struggle with the fact that the cactus on the left was cut in half. I wish you had shown the whole thing. My initial thinking was crop it out, but then you would have cut into the flowers behind it. So if you had just opened it up a little bit on the left side, I think that would have been better. It's a nice image. Overall, it's pleasing. It is cropped a little too tight in the bottom for me, where the cactus almost comes up against the bottom. But overall, I think it was worth an 81 to me.
Okay, thank you. The next one is from the close-up category.
$82.
I scored this an 80, and I really wanted to go higher. This, as it happens, is one of my favorite flowers to photograph. And the reason is all of the creasing and textures in the white petals, but they're a little subdued here because they're just a trifle overexposed. The exposure in the yellow centers is delicious, beautiful, nice, rich color. The green is nice. I think burning in the stem as it goes off to the left would be a good idea because it's bright enough that it takes the viewer's eye away from the main subject. But if you would give just a little more exposure to the image overall, I think you'd improve it by about 5 points. Love the composition. Work on the exposure a bit. Congratulations to the maker. 80.
The next one is in the altered reality category. Come in and see what I see.
'82.
I gave it an 83. Boy, does this tell a story. Wow. Uh, it's just all about this wonderful path that we're on with photography that brings us so much joy and so much fulfillment. And even though it's a Nikon, which is okay, I didn't knock it down because it was a Nikon and not a Canon. I wonder if it's a SLR or a mirrorless. I don't know. Anyway, to be serious about this, this is just a wonderful story that I think really captures what we do and our passion for photography. So I gave it an 83.
The next image is from the animal category, snack time. '83.
I scored this an 84. I love the image. It is sharp. The eyes are sharp. The exposure is excellent. The background is beautifully out of focus. I wish there were a little more room in front of that nose because I almost feel like he's staring into a wall. Had it been, not that I wanted his head in the dead center, but I just wish there were a little more room for him to move into or look into. But I think it's a beautiful image overall.
The next one's in the photojournalism category. Green Bay takes the lead.
'77.
I scored this a 78. The title, I think, adds to it. I believe there's whimsy in the title that there were 4 racing boats in the image instead of just 3. And obviously Green Bay is not up for racing these days, but it's well exposed. It's sharp. The composition is a bit static because of the spacing between the boats, and the maker didn't have a lot of control over that, although the time of snapping the shutter would be some control. In the final analysis, I'm not left feeling that it's a compelling image, and that's why I gave it a 78.
I'd like to comment too. Now here we have another situation where there is a boat pretty much in the dead center, in the bullseye of the image, and it's flanked evenly so by 2 boats on either side of it. From a landscape photography point of view, odd numbers of key elements are desirable. They create imbalance, which creates visual tension. But when they're evenly spaced like that, they become very static. And the title, Green Bay Takes the Lead, suggests that there is a race. And I don't see any indication. The composition is very, very static. I don't see any indication that there's a race going on. So I gave it a 76.
Okay, the next one is from the animal category. Beating the summer heat.
Whoa, this one hits home because we almost lost our dog. We've got a 16-year-old who got out the other day and went down the slope and couldn't get up. And it took 2 of us to get him out, and we could have lost him. And this really hits home.
How's he doing now?
He's recovered. He's back to his normal self, which for a 16-year-old is still pretty slow. But so yeah, this one really hits home, and you can see the eyes that are closed. There's sort of I wouldn't call that a resting pose. I'd call that a tired, maybe exhausted pose. Um, I'm not sure what the background is. In fact, I haven't given it a number yet, so I should stop talking.
81.
I gave it a 79 mostly because I don't understand the background. So the dog is beautifully highlighted. I might like to see it a little closer, which suggests to me that the photographer thought the background was important. And I'm not quite connecting with that. And that's basically the only reason I gave it a 79.
I'd like to
Background.
challenge this one. Um, I um, I think it's worth a lot more than a 79, Ralph. The background, and I don't know why this struck a note or a chord with me also, but my first feeling was this is a street corner, that this dog is sitting there panting, struggling with the heat. And this fire truck goes by, and you can see in the very top, just above the dog's head, almost out of the image, is a water nozzle that is squirting water on him. And it looks like it's actually been there squirting on him for a little while because the sidewalk is soaked, he is soaked, he's dripping water off of himself. And whether the fire truck just saw him struggling and stopped and squirted water on him or was slowly passing by, I don't know. But to me, it is an extremely strong image. The dog is well exposed. The background, which is the fire truck, is subdued enough where it's not the main subject, but there's enough light on it to tell you what that truck is there for. And I scored it an 83, and I almost want to say I might even go a little higher than that. I love the image.
And Bob, you opened my eyes on this one. I see it now. So let's rescore.
Well,
Thanks.
we need Frank's comment too.
Yeah, I scored this an 82, and that was before Bob enlightened me about the storytelling impact here. The fact that it might have been the fire truck going by, seeing the dog, spraying him down, that adds so much to the already wonderful visual qualities that I'm going to come up a bit. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, now for your rebuttal, Bob.
I don't really have a rebuttal. I think that they saw what came to me with it. The only thing that I wish that there was a little more of the reflection in the water. But had you backed away a little more to see that reflection, you might not have gotten enough of the truck to understand what the truck was doing, the fire engine.
And there's another part that's really subtle is the water dripping off the dog's head.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you look closely, then you see it. If you backed up, you might lose some of that.
And
Okay,
he's obviously an older dog. You can see, I mean, animals struggle in the heat. I've seen enough wild animals, you know, they seem to have a better sense of getting in shade and stuff like that. But a domesticated animal doesn't always do that because they expect their masters to take care of them. And obviously, sitting on a street corner, he wasn't being taken care of correctly. But somebody drove by.
May not have been any shade to be had.
Yes. But to me, it is an extremely strong image.
okay, could we have the judges rescore, please?
84.
Okay, the next one is in the altered reality category, Under the Stars.
'86.
I scored this an 88. It took me a moment to get there, but in looking at the individual parts of the image, I initially wanted to look at the exposure on the Santa Fe 108. I don't know how it was lit. It could have been headlights. It could have been, some lights from the rail yard or something like that. But it was well lit, but not so overpowering that it drowned out the light of the lantern. And you can see these three men looking at, looks like probably a worksheet of some sort of where things are going or what's happening. The lighting to me was beautiful, very well balanced. The sky, was it original? I don't know. It could have been dropped in. It could have been actually photographed that way. But I think it was well done, and I congratulate the maker on it.
I'm going to challenge this one. I'm at 87, and the more I look at it, the more I realize that I'm low. This is professional caliber work, no question about it. Bob's points about the lighting on the faces of the two gentlemen whose faces we can see from that lantern, just exquisite. This has every earmark of having been very carefully set up and purposefully lighted. I don't think we're seeing the effects of whatever happened to be there. I think this was a crafted image, a very finely crafted image. I don't think the sky was shot at the same time, and I don't care. It works. It works beautifully, even to the meteor streak in the top. This is an image that just crackles off the page, and so I would encourage my colleagues to do like I'm going to do, and I'm going to bring my score up to 90.
Okay, Ralph, comment?
No, I recognize the arguments, and I certainly see what they're talking about.
Okay, Bob, do you have anything?
No, I said what I feel.
Okay, Frank, you want a rebuttal for whatever you want to say?
No, I think it's been said. Let's rescore.
Okay, judges, rescore, please.
'88.
I wonder how they got a locomotive that clean.
Well, it is altered reality.
Okay.
I
That
remember
category is
sitting,
that?
I remember sitting in the depot in Santa Ana with my mom and dad waiting for a train to come by, and that's what came by on the passengers. The freight trains were still steam engines.
Ah,
Wow. And the next one is from the altered reality category called How High the Moon.
'86.
Well, talk about being centered. And talk about symmetry. Wow. This is a really creative use of symmetry and centering, and they're very powerful. And I feel like I need a duck. So there's, even though according to the rules of composition, this is a static composition, it's anything but. It is so full of energy. And then the moon, the big moon like that, wow, really creates a dramatic impact. To have the propellers of the helicopter, not just the ones that stretch out to each edge, but the ones that come straight at us, it's like they couldn't have timed it any better. I wonder how they got that without any blur. Anyway, this is, maybe they photographed it on the ground. I don't know. But anyway, this is, I think this is really an extraordinary image.
I
Okay,
would like to challenge it.
okay, Bob, you have a
I think-
challenge?
Yes, I do. I think this is truly an extraordinary image, even though it's obviously a composite. Um, you look at the detail in it. You look at the detail on that helicopter, and Ralph, you mentioned the symmetry. Obviously, that one blade pointing towards us is slightly on rotation,
Mhm.
but you look at you can see detail in the faces of the pilot and his navigator. You can see detail in the emblems on the helicopter, and you can see detail on the moon. I wish it were more detail on the moon, but if this were a telephoto lens, you would expect that moon to not be in sharp focus. You would expect it to have a slight blur to it, which it does. And normally I'd say I don't like images as centered as this is. But when you made your comment about, I feel I need to duck, truly, that, I mean, it's an amazing image coming right at you. And the creator of this, I think, was, um, it's just amazing to me. I scored it a 90, and I would like to see the score go a little higher.
I scored this an 83, and I too find it very dynamic and powerful. It's clearly a composite. The helicopter was shot in the daytime. The sun was almost directly overhead, a little bit to the left of overhead. The moon clearly was shot at night, and that doesn't bother me. The fact that it's a composite, what's the category again, Carl, please?
It's altered reality.
Well, that makes it even better. They've combined a day
Yes.
shot and a night shot, and it works. It works beautifully. Bob, I think that if this were a single shot telephoto, that the moon would be a lot fuzzier than it is.
You're
I
right.
think that's one of the giveaways that it's a composite. But again, especially being in the category of altered reality, the fact that it's an obvious composite does not bother me at all. I think it's just a very nearly overwhelming image. Like Ralph says, we better duck. So I will be coming up a little bit.
Okay, let's see, we got everybody's comments. Let's see, Bob, you brought it up, so do you have a rebuttal at all?
No, I think I said what I meant to say.
Good. Judges, please rescore.
'88.
That's a good challenge.
Okay, the next one, open miscellaneous category. Stars over rocks.
'79.
I'll be happy to. And Russ, would you recheck your figures, please, on that 79? I scored this 81. And
Okay. And that's one of the things I've been going through and doing, and I'm glad we have it recorded in the chat, because if I have made an error, we can always go back and check your numbers. So,
okay. This is an interesting example of photographing a starry sky and what appears to be a moonlit foreground. And it almost works. I say almost, but I did score an 81, so it must work some. I see this as a really good opportunity for light painting wasted. Light painting those rocks, the dominant rocks, would have really, I think, given this another 5 points worth of score. Lighting up that tree from behind would have been quite striking. I would recommend to the maker that you consider adding light painting to your night photo skills. And the way to get there is to practice, practice, practice. I'd go back to this very same site and reshoot it, light paint it. You're probably better off doing it on a non-moonlit night so that you have control over all the light. Just be real careful scrambling over those rocks. 81.
Okay, thank you, Frank. The next one is from the altered reality category. Library of Paranormal Studies.
Yeah, 873. Okay. Thank you, Ralph.
Okay, Ralph, you got
81.
81, thank you.
Okay, again, another effort of just incredible creativity. What can I say? Well, it's interesting how at first I didn't see the person sitting there at the desk reading, but then everything channels you into that center spot. And we're talking about symmetry again to some extent, because the focal point is right smack dab in the center. But all the energy is coming from every corner, from every edge, from top and bottom, left and right. It's all just drilling you into the center there. And so I gave it an 873. But back to 83.
From the animal category, Double Trouble.
81.
Okay, that's must be Bob's now.
It is. I scored this an 82. I love the image, and a couple of things that could have helped me go a little bit higher is if a bit of the image were cropped out from the top. The exposure on the foxes is excellent. You look into their eyes. I mean, you can see almost through their eyes. They're tack sharp. Their playfulness is cause their tails to swing a little bit, so they're not tack sharp. But because they're standing in shadow, the background is a little blown out to me. And that could have been cropped out slightly. I love the foreground. If you look in the very bottom of the image, the foreground is lit, out of focus. It provides a nice depth of field for me. But had there been a little less of that top, I could have easily gone to an 85 on it. Almost make it not a panoramic, but something similar to that. The capture that you got, I think, was excellent.
Okay, the next image from the open miscellaneous category, Twilight Time.
'83.
I scored this an 80. I scored it an 82. It's very well crafted. The composition is exquisite. Exposure is well nigh perfect. Focus, it's nice and tack sharp. One thing I would like to see in the image is some human interest. It's a place obviously designed for people, and unless that's a standing person over on the far right, I don't see any people in the image. Well, maybe there's a suggestion of one inside the rightmost set of doors, but I think positioning people at that near table would have been a really good move. Would like to see more detail in the trees. They've got interesting bark, and would like to see more of it. But it's well deserving of the 81 that it's got. Taken at the precisely right time of day, the blue hour, nice rich tone in the sky up in the upper right. I'd be proud to hang this image myself. Congratulations to the maker.
Can I make a quick comment, Frank?
Sure.
I love the image. I scored it an 81, and I would have loved to have gone higher, but and this is just a suggestion to the maker. You sacrificed that third arch on the left side for the tree on the right side. And had you merely shifted or twisted your camera left 10, 12 degrees, you would have cropped a little bit of that tree out, which wasn't a loss, but you would have picked up the entire third arch on the left. And to me, that would have been more impactful on the image than that tree is.
Okay, thank you. The next image is in the animal category. Last light of day.
'82.
Yeah, I scored it a 78. I'm the bad guy here. The thing that I feel uncomfortable about is the fact that it appears to be a fox, that the fox is in shadow, and there's so much drawing the eye away from the fox with all the light on the grass there. And I just wish the fox had a stronger presence in this image. So I gave it a 78.
Hey guys, hang on. I'm sorry. Someone's calling my phone. Apologize.
Okay,
Where'd my Zoom go? Hang on.
Did
Just
we all
timing-
grab our phones?
your timing was almost perfect, but not quite. The last image is in the places category.
Before we go on, I'd like to challenge this one.
Oh, okay.
I understand what you're saying, Ralph, and I typically would totally agree with you. The fact that the subject, 95% of it is in shadow, goes against everything I typically teach. However, in this image, it worked for me. And the fact that he is on the upper 2/3 quadrant also typically goes against most everything I teach. I like to see them on the lower 2/3 intersections. But for me, this one worked because he is looking right into the corner of that image, the lower left corner. And the fact that you can see his eyes, if you look at his nose, you can see the moisture on his nose. You can see the hair in his ears and also the rim lighting hair on his back. You can see all of that. And it typically goes against everything I teach people about photographing wildlife. You want the sun shining on them, typically from behind you, or typically no more than 15 or 20 degrees off of your right or left. And this goes against everything that I teach. But I look at the image and it worked. You look at the weeds in the background just off to the left that look like they're blowing in the breeze slightly, and the lighting on them, the rim lighting, and he's looking into shadow. But overall, I think it is an extremely strong image. I scored it an 85, and I think it's worth every point of an 85.
I scored it an 84, and Bob, I'm listening to your comments. I like very much the fact that the fox is backlit. I am enthralled by the intensity in those eyes. I thought they were looking directly at the camera. I think you're probably right. They're looking a little bit off to our left, but the intensity is wonderful. and I can see detail everywhere that I need to see detail, even as you point out that the moist nose. One suggestion I would make to the maker is this would benefit from a modest vignette. It would take care of some of the brightness in the grasses that flank the fox on his left and right. But I'm comfortable with my 84.
Okay, Ralph, anything on this?
Yeah, I'm still having the same feeling that I expressed. The fox has less visual weight than its surroundings. And I understand your arguments. I understand what you see about it that you like, and I appreciate that. But I still wish the fox would come out of the image more at me. It's kind of being shadowy like that. It kind of lays back.
But isn't that what a fox is all about, in the shadows? They're typically not out amongst all the bright lights and that. Typically they're hiding, they're creeping around. That's the life of a fox.
Yeah.
And this is what that image conveys. He is at the edge of the shadow, looking at his prey, his next meal, possibly.
Okay, judges, could you rescore, please?
Same numbers as before, guys.
Yeah.
Did I miss something?
No.
85,
No.
84, 78. It's
No.
the same.
I just
numbers.
I didn't convince him, that's all.
Okay.
One last image in the places category, contemplative.
'84.
I scored this an 86. And I would like to, it's just an expression. To me, it's not contemplative, it's contemplative. He's standing there contemplating. Is he going to run and jump off that cliff, or is he just going to stand there and appreciate the beautiful scene in front of him? He's contemplating what he wants to do. I like the image. It is well exposed, except for the city in the far upper right corner. That could have maybe been brought down a little bit. But the lighting on the subject and the rock that he's standing on and in the water, I think is, to use Frank's word, exquisitely done. And I think it's a very strong image.
Okay, we have, that is the last of the images. I want to thank everybody who participated, and I want to thank all our judges.